It was a quiet night in Los Angeles, the kind that enveloped the city in a comforting blanket of calm. Keanu Reeves, nestled in his modest home, was just settling in with a book when a rustling noise from the back of his property shattered the peace. Intrigued, he placed his book down and crept toward the sound, his heart pounding with curiosity. As he stepped onto his back porch, the moonlight illuminated a group of figures huddled together near the fence. A chill ran down his spine. Who were they? Were they lost? Or was this something more sinister? His instincts kicked in, blending concern with caution. "What are you doing here?" he called out, his voice steady yet commanding. The group froze, eyes wide, fear etched on their faces. The sight of Keanu Reeves, an icon known for his roles as the hero, should have brought comfort, yet it did the opposite. They looked like deer caught in headlights, their breaths shallow, caught between flight and fight. One of them, a young woman with tired eyes and a wary expression, stepped forward, trembling. "Please, we mean no harm. We're just looking for a place to stay." Her voice, though shaky, held a glimmer of hope that tugged at Keanu's heart. He could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a Hollywood encounter. It was a reflection of something deeper, a glimpse into the lives of those who lived in the shadows, far from the glitz and glam of his world. But what could he do? His mind raced with questions, uncertainty, and the flickering thought of danger. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Keanu took a step closer, the distance between them shrinking. He could see their worn clothing and the desperation in their eyes. In that moment, he understood. They were not just immigrants. They were people with stories, dreams, and fears. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone softening. "Maria," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you here?" he pressed, his heart aching at the sight of their plight. The group exchanged glances, and for a moment, it felt like the world had paused. Maria took a deep breath, her courage swelling. "We're escaping violence, looking for a chance at a better life." Keanu felt a pang of empathy. He knew what it was like to fight for something, to seek solace in the chaos of life. His own past was riddled with struggles, and he recognized that glimmer of resilience in her eyes. In that moment, he made a decision that would change everything. "Come inside," he said, the words tumbling out before he could think twice. It was a risk, but sometimes the biggest risks lead to the most profound changes. Maria hesitated, glancing back at her companions. A young man with a guarded expression and a child, no older than 8, clinging to her side. Keanu could see their uncertainty mirrored in their eyes. "Really? You mean it?" Maria asked, her voice laced with disbelief. "Yeah," Keanu replied, gesturing for them to follow him. "You look like you could use some help." As they stepped into his home, Keanu felt a mix of apprehension and relief. He led them to his cozy living room, filled with eclectic furniture and a few well-loved books lining the shelves. The warmth of the space contrasted sharply with the chill of the night outside. "Make yourselves comfortable," he said, offering them seats. The child, wide-eyed and quiet, sat close to Maria, who wrapped an arm around him protectively. "Thank you," Maria said, her voice barely above a whisper as she looked around, still processing the unexpected kindness. "We didn't know where else to go." Keanu nodded, trying to keep the atmosphere light. "I'm just an actor. You don't need to worry about me. But I want to know what brought you here." As Maria began to share her story, Keanu listened intently, captivated by the resilience of these strangers who had come seeking refuge. She spoke of their journey, leaving behind everything they knew, risking everything for a chance at safety. Each word painted a vivid picture of hardship and hope. In that moment, Keanu realized that this encounter was not just about him helping them. It was about learning, connecting, and understanding the struggles that so many faced every day. He felt a sense of purpose rising within him, igniting a desire to do more than just offer a temporary shelter. But as the night wore on, the gravity of their situation settled heavily in the air. Keanu knew that their presence brought risks, not only to himself but also to them. The reality of illegal immigration loomed like a shadow over their hopeful conversation. As Maria finished her story, silence filled the room. Keanu could sense the weight of unspoken fears. "What happens now?" she finally asked, looking into his eyes, searching for answers. He paused, grappling with the gravity of their predicament. "We need to think carefully about your next steps. You're safe here for tonight, but we need a plan," he said, determination settling in. And just like that, Keanu Reeves found himself at the beginning of an unexpected journey, one that would challenge his views, push his boundaries, and ultimately reshape the lives of those involved. Little did he know, this night was just the start of something much bigger than himself. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains, Keanu sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in hand. The warmth of the mug grounded him, but his mind was still reeling from the events of the previous night. Maria and her group were asleep in the living room, their exhaustion evident in the way they curled up together on the couch. Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was more than just a random act of kindness. It felt like fate pulling him toward a deeper understanding of humanity. But as he stared out at the sunlit garden, memories of his own past began to resurface, reminding him of the struggles that shaped him. Born in Beirut and moving to Toronto at a young age, Keanu was no stranger to hardship. His early life was filled with challenges. His father abandoned the family when he was just 3, leaving his mother, Patricia, to raise him and his sisters alone. Patricia worked multiple jobs, embodying resilience and grit. She taught Keanu the importance of empathy and compassion, often saying, "Always help those who are less fortunate than you." He remembered the long nights when they barely scraped by, living in small apartments and often relying on the kindness of neighbors. Those experiences ingrained in him a profound sense of gratitude and a desire to make a difference. Even as he rose to fame, he never forgot where he came from. As his career took off with films like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and The Matrix, he remained grounded, often donating to various charities and causes that supported those in need. Despite the glitz and glamour, he sought a quiet life away from the prying eyes of the public. His home in Los Angeles was meant to be a sanctuary, a place where he could escape the chaos of Hollywood. But now, it felt like destiny had other plans. The sound of rustling in the living room pulled him back to the present. Maria stirred awake, and as her eyes met his, a flicker of recognition passed between them. The previous night's fears and uncertainties were still there, but now there was also an unspoken bond, an understanding that transcended their different worlds. "Good morning," Keanu said, offering a warm smile. "How did you sleep?" Maria stretched, glancing around the room. "I didn't think I'd sleep at all, but I guess I was more tired than I realized." Her eyes softened as she looked at her companions still sleeping. "Thank you for letting us stay. You have no idea how much this means to us." Keanu nodded, his heart swelling with empathy. "You're safe here for now, but we need to discuss what to do next." They spent the morning talking quietly over breakfast, sharing stories and getting to know each other. Keanu learned more about Maria's life back home, a place she had once loved but was now riddled with fear and violence. Her determination to protect her child resonated deeply with him, reminding him of his own family dynamics growing up. As Maria spoke, Keanu couldn't help but feel a surge of inspiration. She was a survivor, much like his mother had been. The parallels between their lives began to draw clearer lines in his mind, bridging their experiences despite the vast differences in their circumstances. Later that day, as the sun climbed higher, Keanu suggested a walk around his property. "I think some fresh air would do us all good," he said. They stepped outside, and he showed them his garden, a small oasis filled with colorful flowers and fruit trees. "This is beautiful," Maria exclaimed, kneeling down to touch the petals of a blooming rose. "You've created a paradise here." "It's just a little patch of earth," he shrugged, "but it brings me peace. It reminds me of the simple things in life." He glanced over at the young man who had remained quiet since their arrival, looking lost in thought. "What about you? What's your story?" The young man, whose name was Javier, looked up, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. "I'm here because I had to be. I left my family behind, hoping to find work and send money back home. But things changed." His voice trailed off, filled with unspoken pain. Keanu felt a deep sense of compassion. "It's not easy. I know what it's like to be separated from those you love," he said softly. "But you're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together." As they continued walking, Keanu shared his own story, weaving through the struggles and triumphs of his life. He spoke of the loss of loved ones, the pressure of fame, and the importance of staying true to oneself. The more he shared, the more he could see the barriers between them crumble. They found a small patch of grass and sat together, the conversation flowing freely. The child, whose name was Mateo, started to giggle as he chased a butterfly, and for a moment, the heaviness of their reality lifted. Laughter, even in the midst of uncertainty, felt like a powerful balm. After a while, Keanu's thoughts drifted to the looming questions about their future. "I know this situation isn't ideal," he began cautiously, "but I want to help you navigate this." Maria looked at him, a mixture of gratitude and apprehension in her eyes. "We appreciate it, Keanu. But we're afraid of what might happen if anyone finds out we're here." "I understand," he replied, his voice steady. "We'll have to be cautious. But maybe there's a way to seek help without drawing too much attention." In that moment, Keanu realized that this was not just about providing shelter. It was about creating a safe space where they could be heard and supported. He was determined to help them find a way to navigate their precarious situation while honoring the resilience they all shared. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the garden, Keanu felt a flicker of hope. Together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did they know, the journey they were embarking on would not only change their lives but also challenge Keanu's perspective on compassion, community, and the bonds that unite us all. As the days turned into weeks, Keanu, Maria, Javier, and little Mateo found an unexpected rhythm in their lives together. Keanu continued to provide shelter, and in return, Maria and Javier helped around the house, creating a sense of family that transcended their circumstances. They shared meals, laughter, and stories, forging bonds that felt both new and familiar. Yet, beneath the surface of their growing camaraderie lay an undercurrent of tension. The reality of Maria and Javier's status loomed large. Each passing day brought with it the gnawing fear of discovery and the quiet dread of what might happen if anyone found out about the immigrants living in Keanu's home. One afternoon, while they were all sitting outside in the garden, Keanu noticed a police car slowly cruising down the street. His heart raced as he watched it come to a stop just a few houses down. He quickly glanced at Maria, whose face had gone pale. The laughter from earlier faded, replaced by an anxious silence that hung heavily in the air. "Stay calm," he whispered, trying to reassure her, though he could feel his own nerves kicking in. "Let's not draw attention to ourselves." As the officers got out and began speaking to a neighbor, Maria's hands trembled in her lap. "What if they come here?" she asked, her voice quivering. "We'll figure it out," Keanu promised, though uncertainty gnawed at him. He had always been a man of action, but this was uncharted territory. The stakes felt higher than anything he had ever faced on screen. The police car eventually drove away, but the incident ignited a sense of urgency within Keanu. He could see the toll that the constant fear of deportation was taking on Maria and Javier. Their smiles were fewer, and their laughter felt forced. They were living in a state of heightened awareness, always glancing over their shoulders, and Keanu could sense the growing strain on their spirits. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Keanu decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "I know things have been tense lately," he began, his voice steady yet gentle. "I want to help you find a way to feel safer." Maria looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude, but also apprehension. "We appreciate everything you've done, but the reality is we can't stay here forever. We're just waiting for something bad to happen." Javier chimed in, his tone serious. "We have to consider our options. Maybe it would be better if we left and found somewhere else to go." Keanu felt a pang of despair at the thought of them leaving. "But you don't have to do this alone," he said. "We can figure out a plan together. There are resources available. Legal help." "Legal help?" Maria interrupted, shaking her head. "That's a risk. What if they find out who we are? What if we end up worse off?" Keanu felt the weight of her words, the harsh reality of the situation pressing down on them. I understand the fear, he replied, but doing nothing isn't a solution either. I've been thinking about ways we can navigate this, ways to protect you and give you a chance at a better life. Their conversation grew heated as emotions bubbled to the surface. Maria's anxiety was palpable, while Javier's frustration simmered just beneath the surface. Keanu had always been the calm in the storm, but now he found himself struggling to maintain that balance. Maybe you don't understand how high the stakes are for us, Javier exclaimed, his voice rising. You can go back to your normal life, but we don't have that luxury. We're risking everything just by being here. Keanu took a deep breath, recognizing the pain behind Javier's words. I do understand. I've faced my own struggles, my own risks. I'm here because I believe in you both. I believe in your right to seek a better life. As the tension filled the room, the doorbell rang, cutting through the heaviness like a sudden crack of thunder. They all froze, exchanging anxious glances. Keanu's heart raced as he approached the door, his mind racing with possibilities. Who is it? Maria whispered, panic evident in her eyes. Peeking through the peephole, Keanu sighed in relief. It was his friend, Alex, a fellow actor. He opened the door, forcing a smile, but the unease lingered in the air. Hey man, I hope I'm not interrupting, Alex said, stepping inside. He noticed the somber mood immediately. What's going on? Keanu exchanged glances with Maria and Javier, unsure of how much to reveal. Just some personal matters, he replied, trying to sound casual. Alex raised an eyebrow, but Keanu quickly shifted the conversation to lighter topics. They chatted about upcoming projects and shared a few laughs, but Keanu felt the tension still lingering in the background, an uninvited guest in their home. After Alex left, the weight of the conversation from earlier returned. Keanu knew they couldn't avoid the issue any longer. We need to come up with a plan, one that keeps you safe but also gives you a chance to seek help, he insisted, looking at Maria and Javier earnestly. But how? Maria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We're out of options. Maybe we can reach out to an organization that specializes in immigrant rights, Keanu suggested. I've heard of places that offer support and legal advice. Javier sighed, frustration evident in his expression. And if they find out who we are, we'll be back at square one, or worse. Keanu could feel the weight of their fears, but he also saw something else, an opportunity for hope. I'll go with you, he promised, determination shining in his eyes. We can face this together. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the tension shifted. Maria and Javier could see the sincerity in Keanu's expression, the commitment to stand by them. Okay, Maria finally said, her voice steadier. Let's do it. But we need to be careful. As they huddled together, discussing their next steps, Keanu felt a flicker of hope. This journey wouldn't be easy, but they were in it together. Little did they know, the path ahead would test their resolve, challenge their fears, and ultimately reveal the strength they all possessed. The next morning, Keanu gathered Maria and Javier to discuss their plan in detail. The sun streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the seriousness in their expressions. They sat around the table, a small island of hope amidst the looming uncertainty. I've done some research on organizations that might help, Keanu said, tapping his fingers on the table. There's a community center not far from here that focuses on supporting immigrants. They provide legal advice, counseling, and even safe housing options. Maria listened intently, but her apprehension was palpable. What if they report us to the authorities? We can't risk that. Keanu leaned forward, his gaze earnest. I understand the fear, but this might be our best option. They're trained to handle these situations. They'll know how to protect you. Javier crossed his arms, clearly torn. But how can we trust them? We don't know anything about this place or its people. Keanu nodded, acknowledging their concerns. I'll go with you. We can meet with someone and see how it feels. If we don't get a good vibe, we can walk away. No harm done. Maria glanced at Javier, her eyes searching for reassurance. What do you think? She asked him, her voice softening. After a moment of silence, Javier sighed. I guess it's worth a shot. We're running out of options anyway. With a tentative agreement in place, Keanu decided it was time to take action. They would go to the community center that afternoon. He could feel the mix of hope and anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. They were stepping into the unknown, a venture fraught with uncertainty, but it was a chance, perhaps their best chance. As they drove to the center, Keanu could sense the tension in the car. Maria clutched Mateo's hand tightly, and Javier stared out the window, lost in thought. The streets of Los Angeles flew by, the familiar landscape blurring with each passing moment. When they arrived, Keanu took a deep breath, feeling a rush of nerves. The community center was a modest building, adorned with colorful murals and bustling with activity. People chatted animatedly in various languages, creating a vibrant tapestry of culture and community. "Stay close," Keanu whispered, leading them through the entrance. He could see a receptionist behind the desk, welcoming visitors with a warm smile. "Hi there. How can I help you today?" she asked, her voice cheerful. Keanu stepped forward. "We're looking for assistance. My friends are in need of support, and we'd like to speak with someone who can help." "Absolutely. Let me connect you with one of our caseworkers," she said, reaching for the phone. As they waited, Maria's anxiety bubbled over. What if this is a mistake? What if we're making things worse? Keanu turned to her, trying to convey confidence. "We're here together. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a team." Moments later, a woman in her late 40s, with kind eyes and a warm smile, approached them. "Hi, I'm Anna. I'm one of the caseworkers here. What brings you in today?" Keanu introduced Maria and Javier, and they shared their situation with Anna, who listened intently, nodding with understanding. "Thank you for trusting us," she said when they finished. "We're here to help. Let's discuss your options and figure out the best way to move forward." As Anna spoke, Keanu felt a surge of hope. This woman exuded warmth and compassion, creating an environment that eased some of Maria and Javier's fears. Anna explained their services in detail, outlining resources available for legal assistance, housing, and community support. "Your safety is our priority," Anna assured them. "We've helped many families in similar situations, and we'll do everything we can to protect you." After the meeting, Maria and Javier appeared visibly relieved. "I can't believe we actually spoke to someone who understands," Maria said, her voice softer, tinged with hope. "Yeah," Javier agreed, a hint of a smile breaking through his earlier tension. "It feels good to talk about it openly." As they walked out of the center, Keanu felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was just the beginning, and while they still had challenges ahead, they had taken a significant step toward finding stability. But that evening, just as they settled back into the comfort of Keanu's home, the tension returned. A loud knock at the door jolted them from their relaxation. Keanu's heart raced as he exchanged glances with Maria and Javier. "Who could that be?" Maria whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Keanu cautiously approached the door, his instincts on high alert. Peering through the peephole, he felt a rush of relief wash over him. It was Alex again. He opened the door, forcing a smile despite the anxiety coursing through him. "Hey, sorry to drop by unannounced," Alex said, stepping inside. "I brought some food, thought we could have a little hangout." Keanu's mind was racing. He hadn't anticipated visitors and suddenly felt exposed. Thanks, man. That sounds great," he said, trying to sound casual. As Alex set down the food, he glanced at Maria and Javier, who were still adjusting to the surprise. "Who are your friends?" he asked, curiosity evident in his tone. Keanu hesitated, knowing that introducing them could complicate everything. "Just some new friends I've made," he replied, keeping it vague. Alex's brows furrowed slightly, but he didn't push further. They gathered around the table, sharing stories and laughter, but the underlying tension lingered in the air. Keanu felt torn between wanting to protect Maria and Javier and maintaining his friendship with Alex. As the evening wore on, laughter echoed through the house, a momentary distraction from the weight of their reality. But as the night drew to a close and Alex finally left, Keanu couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled back over them. The fear of discovery loomed larger than ever, a reminder that their situation was precarious. They were stepping onto a tightrope, balancing between safety and exposure, and Keanu knew that one misstep could lead to disaster. "Tomorrow, we'll follow up with Anna," Keanu said, trying to inject some optimism into the atmosphere. "We're on the right path." But deep down, he knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. As he watched Maria and Javier exchange weary glances, he felt a surge of determination. They would face whatever came next together. Little did they know, the real conflict was just beginning, and their lives were about to change in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The following day dawned with a heavy cloud cover, casting a gray hue over the world outside. Keanu gathered Maria, Javier, and Mateo for their follow-up meeting at the community center. As they drove, he could sense the weight of anxiety in the car, each of them lost in their thoughts. Arriving at the center, Keanu noticed the atmosphere was bustling, with families coming and going, some laughing, others with serious expressions. It struck him how life continued in the face of adversity. Maria and Javier exchanged nervous glances as they entered, their hands intertwined tightly. Anna greeted them warmly, ushering them into her office, which was adorned with colorful posters advocating for immigrant rights. "I'm glad to see you all again. How have things been since our last meeting?" "Better, I think," Maria said, her voice wavering. "But we're still scared." Anna nodded, her expression empathetic. "That's completely understandable. Let's talk about your options and what steps we can take to ensure your safety." As Anna spoke, Keanu listened intently, noting the legal pathways and resources she described. But beneath the surface of the conversation, he could feel a building tension, a sense that something was about to change. Suddenly, Anna's phone buzzed, cutting through the discussion. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting. "I need to take this. Please, excuse me for a moment," she said, stepping out of the room. The silence hung heavy in the air, and Maria turned to Keanu, her eyes wide with fear. "What if this doesn't work out? What if we can't find a way to stay safe?" Keanu reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "We will find a way. We're in this together, remember?" But just as he spoke, Javier's expression darkened. "What if we're just prolonging the inevitable? We might be caught regardless." Before Keanu could respond, Anna returned, her expression somber. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have some urgent news." She hesitated, collecting her thoughts. "There's been an increase in raids in the area. Law enforcement is actively targeting immigrant communities." Maria gasped, and Javier's face fell. Keanu felt the air in the room shift, the walls closing in on them. "What does that mean for us?" Maria asked, her voice shaking. "It means we need to act quickly," Anna replied, her tone serious. "You have a few options, but you must decide soon. If you stay here, we need to take precautions. I can't risk my son being in danger." Maria interrupted, her voice rising. "We can't just sit here and wait to be caught." Keanu felt a surge of frustration and fear. "But leaving could put you in even more danger. We can't make rash decisions." Javier's eyes darted between Maria and Keanu. "What do we do then? We can't just sit back and hope for the best." The conversation escalated, emotions boiling over as fear and frustration intertwined. Maria's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to protect Mateo." Keanu's heart raced as he watched the tension unfold. He wanted to calm them, to reassure them that everything would be okay. "We'll figure this out together, I promise," he said, trying to inject a sense of calm into the chaos. Anna interjected, her voice firm yet compassionate. "Listen, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to strategize. The more prepared you are, the better your chances." Taking a deep breath, Keanu gathered his thoughts. "Let's think clearly. What options do we have? We can consider safe houses or possibly relocation to another area where you'd be less exposed." Maria shook her head, anguish etched on her face. "But that means uprooting everything. Mateo's life, our lives. Everything we've built here." Javier, clearly torn, added, "But what choice do we have? We can't let fear control us." The emotional weight of the moment was palpable. Keanu's heart ached for them, realizing that the struggle they were facing wasn't just about legal status. It was about identity, belonging, and the profound need for safety. In that moment of heightened emotion, Keanu felt an overwhelming urge to protect them. No matter what you decide, I will support you. We'll find a way through this together. Tears streamed down Maria's cheeks as she looked at him, vulnerability etched on her face. I don't want to keep running. I just want a life for my son. Me too, Javier added, his voice breaking. I want to feel like a man again, not someone who is always hiding. Anna's gaze softened as she watched the scene unfold. I understand how difficult this is, but you have options. Let's take this one step at a time. Keanu looked at Maria and Javier, their faces reflecting fear, desperation, but also a glimmer of hope. Maybe we can start by reaching out to family or friends who might offer a safe place. We can brainstorm together. Maria nodded, wiping her tears away. I just want to feel safe for Mateo. Keanu felt a surge of determination. We'll make a list of contacts, and we'll figure out a plan. We won't let fear dictate our choices. As they sat together, the weight of their reality pressed heavily upon them. They were all feeling the strain, but in that moment, Keanu could sense a shift. A collective resolve was forming, a bond that went beyond circumstance, transcending fear and uncertainty. After the meeting, they decided to take a walk in the nearby park to process everything. The vibrant greenery offered a stark contrast to the heaviness they had just faced. As they strolled, Keanu tried to lighten the mood. Look at that dog. He's having the time of his life. Maria chuckled softly, her smile tentative. I wish I could have that kind of freedom. Me too, Javier replied, his voice quieter. But we will find a way. I believe that. The three of them paused by a pond, watching the ducks glide across the water. In that moment of stillness, Keanu felt a surge of hope. They were facing immense challenges, but they were not alone. Little did they know, the road ahead would be filled with unexpected twists and turns. But together, they would forge a path towards safety and understanding, one step at a time. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Keanu, Maria, and Javier worked together to build a plan, balancing fear with hope. They reached out to potential contacts, seeking safe havens and legal advice, while Anna from the community center provided guidance and support. Every evening, they gathered in Keanu's living room to discuss their progress, drawing strength from one another. Keanu's home transformed from a simple sanctuary into a command center for their collective fight for safety. One evening, as they sat together, Keanu placed a large map on the table, tracing routes to possible safe houses and resources. We need to prioritize places that are known to be supportive, he explained, pointing out locations marked with bright stickers. Let's make a list of who we can trust. Maria nodded, her expression determined. I have a cousin in a nearby town. She has a small apartment and said we could stay there for a bit. It's not much, but it's a start. That's a great option, Keanu replied, feeling a rush of optimism. We should reach out to her as soon as possible. Javier leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed. What if we get caught on the way? What if the police stop us? Keanu could see the fear etched in Javier's face. We'll stick together, stay low-key, and keep our story consistent. And we can plan escape routes. Maria squeezed Javier's hand, her voice steadying him. We have to be brave. For Mateo, as they finalized their plans, Keanu felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just hiding. They were actively working toward a future. Yet, an unsettling undercurrent of anxiety remained. The world outside felt more dangerous than ever. Days turned into a week, and as the departure day approached, the air was thick with anticipation and fear. Keanu spent more time preparing, stocking up on essentials, and creating a safe plan for their journey. Each item packed in their bags felt like a piece of their lives they were leaving behind. On the morning of their departure, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the house. Keanu gathered everyone in the living room for a final pep talk. Remember, we're doing this together. No matter what happens, we'll support each other, he said, trying to instill a sense of strength in the room. Maria looked at him, her eyes glistening. Thank you for believing in us. You've given us hope when we needed it most. Javier nodded, his expression softening. We wouldn't have made it this far without you. As they loaded up the car, Keanu took a moment to reflect on the journey they had undertaken. This was more than just a physical escape. It was a testament to the strength of their bond, the resilience of the human spirit, and the power of love. Driving through the city, Keanu's heart raced with a mix of excitement and trepidation. They navigated familiar streets, each turn a reminder of the life they were leaving behind. Maria held Mateo close, whispering reassurances to him, while Javier gazed out the window, lost in thought. As they approached the outskirts of town, Keanu felt the weight of their choices pressing down on him. They had worked hard to get to this point, but the uncertainty of the future loomed ahead. Suddenly, flashing lights appeared in the rearview mirror, and Keanu's heart dropped. "Stay calm," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Javier stiffened beside him. "What do we do?" "Just act normal," Keanu said, gripping the wheel tightly. He pulled over, anxiety coiling in his stomach. The officer approached the car, and Keanu's mind raced. What would he say? How would he protect them? "Good afternoon," the officer said, peering into the car. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Keanu's heart raced as he maintained eye contact, trying to convey calm. "No, officer. I'm not sure. Your tail light is out. I need to see your license and registration." Keanu nodded, fumbling for his documents. As he handed them over, he could feel Maria's tension radiating beside him. "Everything checks out," the officer said after a tense moment. "Just get that light fixed, okay? Drive safely." Keanu released a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Thank you, officer," he managed, relief flooding through him as the officer walked back to his car. As they resumed their journey, laughter bubbled up, breaking the tension that had settled over them. "That was too close," Maria exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. "I can't believe we got through that," Javier added, shaking his head in disbelief. As they drove further away from the city, a sense of freedom began to envelop them. They were moving toward the unknown, but they were doing it together, and that made all the difference. Hours later, they finally arrived at Maria's cousin's apartment. It was small but cozy, and there was an undeniable sense of warmth as they stepped inside. Keanu felt a surge of hope, realizing this could be a new beginning for them. Maria looked around, her eyes brightening. "This is perfect," she said, embracing her cousin tightly. "Thank you for letting us stay." Javier smiled, relief washing over him. "We can make this work." As they settled in, Keanu felt a wave of gratitude. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and the possibility of losing everything, but they had emerged stronger. The bonds they had forged were unbreakable. Later that evening, as they gathered for a simple dinner, Keanu looked around the table at the faces he had come to care for deeply. "We've made it this far, and I believe we can build a future together," he said, his voice steady. "We'll take it one day at a time." Maria raised her glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," Javier echoed, his eyes shining with hope. As they clinked their glasses together, Keanu felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had embarked on a journey that would test their limits, but it was also a journey of love, resilience, and the unyielding desire for a better life. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of family and newfound hope, Keanu realized that they had already begun to carve out their path. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger than ever. As days turned into weeks, Keanu, Maria, and Javier began to settle into a routine in the cozy apartment. The initial anxiety of their escape gradually gave way to a sense of belonging as they formed a new life within the walls of Maria's cousin's home. Keanu dedicated himself to helping them adjust. He sought out local resources, connecting with community organizations and support groups, while ensuring Mateo had access to schooling and playtime with other kids in the neighborhood. It felt good to have purpose, to make a difference in their lives. One afternoon, Keanu watched as Mateo played in the small park nearby, his laughter ringing out like music in the air. Maria sat on a bench, her face glowing with relief. "I can't believe how happy he is here," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Kids have a way of adapting," Keanu replied, smiling. "He's resilient, just like you." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Maria's expression turned thoughtful. I still worry about what happens next. What if the authorities find us? Keanu understood the fear that lingered. I know it's a risk, but we've taken all the precautions we can. Let's keep looking for opportunities to stabilize your situation. Javier, who had been listening, leaned forward. I've been thinking about finding work. I can't just sit here. I want to contribute. Maria shook her head, concern flashing across her face. But what if you get caught? We can't take that chance. Keanu interjected gently, Javier, it's important to feel productive and provide for your family. If we can find a way for you to work safely, it could help ease some of the financial pressure. Javier nodded, considering Keanu's words. Maybe I can look for jobs that pay under the table, something low-key. As they discussed the options, Keanu felt a sense of pride in their resilience. They were navigating a precarious existence, but they were doing it together as a family. A few days later, Javier secured a job at a local landscaping company. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to help with their living expenses. Keanu felt a surge of relief, knowing this would alleviate some of the burdens they faced. However, with this newfound stability came new challenges. Javier's work schedule was demanding, often keeping him away from home long hours. Maria struggled to adjust to the change, feeling isolated and overwhelmed. One evening, Keanu found Maria sitting alone in the living room, staring out the window. Hey, everything okay? He asked softly. She turned to him, her eyes glistening. I feel so alone sometimes. I miss our old life, our friends. I'm grateful for what we have, but it's hard. Keanu sat down beside her, understanding her pain. It's completely normal to feel that way. Change is never easy, but you're not alone. We're all in this together. I just want to be able to support Javier, to make this easier for him, Maria said, her voice quivering. Keanu took a deep breath, wanting to uplift her spirit. You're doing an amazing job. Just being here, creating a safe environment for Mateo, is a huge contribution. She smiled faintly, and he could see the tension start to ease. Thank you, Keanu. I appreciate everything you've done for us. As days passed, the pressure mounted. Javier worked long hours, and the strain began to show. He returned home exhausted, his patience wearing thin, while Maria felt increasingly isolated. One evening, after Javier came home late, the tension reached a breaking point. Maria confronted him, her voice filled with frustration. You're never here. I'm doing everything I can to keep us together, and I need you to help. Javier's eyes narrowed, fatigue evident on his face. I'm trying my best, Maria. I'm working hard for us. This is what we agreed upon. Keanu, sensing the rising conflict, stepped in. Let's take a moment to breathe. We're all under a lot of pressure, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Maria turned to Keanu, her voice shaking. I don't want to keep living like this. I want to feel secure, to know that we're going to be okay. Me too, Javier admitted, frustration giving way to vulnerability. But we can't give up now. We fought too hard to get here. Keanu glanced back and forth between them, feeling the emotional weight in the room. This is just a tough moment. Let's refocus on what we can control. We're a team, and we'll find a way through this together. In the following days, they made a concerted effort to reconnect. Keanu encouraged them to set aside time for each other, carving out moments of joy amidst the chaos. They explored the neighborhood, finding little adventures that sparked laughter and reminded them of the beauty in life. One Saturday, they took Mateo to the beach. As they played in the sand, building castles and splashing in the waves, the stress that had once consumed them began to lift. Keanu watched as Maria and Javier laughed, their worries temporarily forgotten in the joy of the moment. Later, as they sat on the shore watching the sunset, Keanu felt a deep sense of contentment. No matter where we are, we can create our own happiness, he said, turning to them. Maria smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. You're right. We need to focus on the positives. Javier nodded in agreement. I want to make this work. For Mateo and for us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Keanu felt a renewed sense of hope. They were still facing an uncertain future, but they had each other, a family bound not just by blood, but by the strength of their shared experiences. Yet, As they drove back home, Keanu's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Anna. Please call me when you can. Urgent matter to discuss. A chill ran down his spine. He glanced at Maria and Javier, who were chatting excitedly about the day. He felt a knot of anxiety forming in his stomach. Whatever Anna had to say, it was bound to change everything once again. The atmosphere in the car shifted as Keanu's heart raced, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. He glanced at Maria and Javier, who were still caught up in their conversation, blissfully unaware of the urgency he felt. He needed to know what Anna wanted, and the concern gnawed at him. Once they arrived home, Keanu immediately stepped into the living room and called Anna. The line rang only once before she answered. Keanu, thank you for calling, Anna said, her tone serious. I have some important news regarding the local situation. There's been an increase in community support, but also more raids. I need you to be cautious. Keanu felt a chill wash over him. What do you mean? Is there something specific we need to worry about? The authorities are becoming more aggressive in their actions. I've received reports of potential raids happening within the week. You need to prepare. His heart sank. What can we do? There's a safe haven program that some families have used successfully. It's discreet, but you need to act quickly. Keanu's mind raced. He thought of Maria and Javier, and most importantly, little Mateo. We will do whatever it takes. Thank you for the information. After hanging up, Keanu turned to Maria and Javier, who were now sitting quietly, sensing the shift in his demeanor. We need to talk. He explained the situation, watching as concern crept across their faces. We have to consider the safe haven option. It's not ideal, but it may be our best chance. Maria's brow furrowed. What does that mean for us? More uncertainty? Keanu nodded, feeling the weight of the decision. It means we may have to leave again, but this time, it could lead us to a more stable situation. It's a risk, but staying here might be even riskier. Javier clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. I'm tired of running. I just want to feel settled, to live without fear. I understand, Keanu said, his voice steady. But we can't ignore the reality of our situation. We owe it to Mateo to keep him safe. Maria looked at Keanu, her eyes pleading. What if we get caught? What if we're separated? The thought sent a pang of dread through Keanu's heart. I won't let that happen. We'll stick together. We can make this work, just like we have before. After much discussion, they decided to move forward with the safe haven plan. Over the next few days, they packed their belongings, readying themselves for the next chapter of their journey. It was a mix of anxiety and determination. They had faced so much together, and now they were preparing to face yet another challenge. On the day of their departure, the air was thick with tension. Keanu loaded the car with their essentials while Maria and Javier finalized their arrangements. Mateo played nearby, blissfully unaware of the gravity of the situation. As they hit the road, Keanu felt the familiar mix of apprehension and hope. The landscape changed outside the window, but this time, it felt different. They weren't just fleeing. They were moving toward a new beginning. The drive to the safe haven was filled with quiet reflection. They talked about their dreams and aspirations, imagining a life where they could live freely. Keanu shared his desire to help others like them, and Maria expressed her hope for Mateo's future, filled with opportunities. Hours later, they arrived at a secluded house surrounded by trees, a stark contrast to the urban life they had left behind. Anna was waiting for them, her presence reassuring. Welcome, she said warmly. You're safe here for now. As they entered the house, Keanu felt a sense of relief wash over him. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was a place where they could breathe, regroup, and find their footing again. Over the next few weeks, the atmosphere in the safe haven began to shift from anxiety to hope. Keanu took on a leadership role, connecting with other families and building a support network. Maria found joy in organizing community activities, while Javier took on odd jobs to contribute. Mateo thrived in the new environment, making friends and exploring the woods surrounding the house. Keanu watched as the little boy's laughter echoed through the trees, a sound that filled him with warmth. One afternoon, as Keanu and Mateo built a fort in the backyard, Maria approached, a smile lighting up her face. Look at him. He's so happy here, she said, her voice full of pride. He is. And so are we, Keanu replied, feeling a sense of belonging for the first time in a long while. As time passed, the uncertainty of their past slowly faded, replaced by a sense of community and support. They shared meals, stories, and laughter, forging bonds that felt unbreakable. One evening, as they sat around a campfire with other families, Keanu reflected on their journey. "We've come so far, and I'm grateful for every step we took together," he said, his voice steady. "Each challenge brought us closer, and together, we've built something beautiful." Maria squeezed his hand, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you for always believing in us. You've shown us the meaning of family." Javier nodded, his voice filled with emotion. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're living." As the flames danced in the night, Keanu felt a profound sense of hope for the future. They had faced insurmountable odds and had emerged stronger, united by their shared experiences. With every passing day, they were building a new life, one filled with love, resilience, and a determination to embrace whatever came next. Keanu knew that while challenges would undoubtedly arise, they had the strength to face them together. As the stars twinkled above, Keanu looked at Maria, Javier, and Mateo, and he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. They had carved out a space for themselves in a world that often felt unwelcoming, and it was beautiful. In that moment, he realized they were not just survivors. They were thrivers, ready to embrace the journey ahead, together.